Alright, so I managed to see all three new movies this weekend, and it would be my pleasure to start with Godzilla King of the Monsters. Um, I guess before I say anything, I don't want to, I don't set out to, offend anybody, I don't want to do that really at all, but if you'll forgive me for being a bit blunt, I do have to say, going into talking about this movie, that just watching it, you can kind of tell it's going to be one of those movies that many people will come out of saying, oh my god, do you believe how bad the dialogue in this was? Do you believe how poorly written it was? And it's like, oh, the human characters are so thin and pointless, and it's like, I couldn't stand the portions of the movie that had the human characters, and then it's like, oh, the characters make so many dumb decisions, like, if it were me, I would have done this smart thing, or why didn't this person that's supposed to be this do this particular thing, or whatever it is. And just really sort of analyzing it to death, and really what I just want to say to those particular people is, would you shut the fuck up? Do you have any idea what you're walking into when you go to something like this? And I understand that it's always probably better if a movie tries to succeed in all of its different facets, but sometimes some movies come out that just have one particular job. They just have one job that they need to do, and a lot of the times those movies that have the one job will go above and beyond to do that particular job. And this is probably one of those movies. So, with that out of the way, I did like Gareth Edwards' first Godzilla movie from 2014 quite a bit. I know some people didn't care for the fact that he barely showed Godzilla, and it did actually sometimes get genuinely frustrating to the point of how teased we were, and the scenes would cut off and all that until we finally got the big finale. And yeah, it is also kind of frustrating that a lot of that 2014 Godzilla movie is so incredibly dark. I don't remember having that problem too much in the theater that I can remember, but every time I watch it at home, it's always a problem. In any room, in any sort of lighting whatsoever, that is a damn dark movie for a movie that has so much action in it. But there's still a lot to like in it. Like, every time I watch it again, it's like I forget just how much there is that I like about it. Over the past 5 years that it's been out. And speaking of the fact that it's been out for 5 years, I really liked sort of the opening of this movie, which I didn't even realize this was kind of the direction they were going to go, but it's like, for starters, it's got like that Batman vs. Superman opening, where we see Kyle Chandler and Vera Farmiga and Millie Bobby Brown and their other child, and it's like they're in the carnage of that, and then we just haven't seen Godzilla since then. And it's the 2014 attacks that everybody just remembers as this gigantic tragedy that happened. And the fact that it's basically everybody in the world coping with the fact that monsters exist after this event happened, despite the fact that it's been relatively not as chaotic in the last 5 years. But certainly is about to be because of Charles Dance. Of course, Charles Dance, why not? Who has a plan to release all the monsters that we know and love from the older Godzilla movies, or their own solo movies, like Mothra and Rodan, and of course, King Ghidorah, who's basically the villain of this movie, obviously. And it does, and like I said, if you're here to say the plot is terrible, whatever gets the monsters out, it really doesn't matter too much. The entire plot might as well be a MacGuffin in itself, because that's all that matters. But they do bring out the age-old thing of, they pretty much they give exactly Samuel L. Jackson's speech in Kingsman. The whole, there's the Earth, and then the virus is humans, and the fever is the monsters that are gonna flush that virus out. So, and that's about it. And then the entire rest of the movie is just shit getting fucked up, nonstop. And I can understand if somebody wants to throw out a criticism and say that they get tired of the action, like it becomes a little too much and goes on and on and on. That's a criticism that I would understand. But once again, if you're like here for this kind of thing, I would like to think this is exactly what you want. Surely, it would have to be. But we do get the opening where we are introduced to the human characters, and we get a little bit of that. There is Kyle Chandler. I was a little afraid at first was going to basically be another reincarnation of the Bryan Cranston character from the 2014 movie, but not really. Even though there are similar family dynamics, like the one that Cranston had with Aaron Taylor Johnson's character and so on, is kind of here, but once again, it only matters to a certain extent, just like it did in the other movie. So we do get the scene where the first one we're introduced to is Mothra, and we do get the scene with her and Millie Bobby Brown. And it's like, surely to God, somebody, some reviewer or somebody out there has already used the phrase "How to Train Your Mothra" is the shot that we get. And then we're slowly introduced, and then eventually we get to Rodan was one where I was like, I remember really hoping he was going to kind of show up in the 2014 movie. Like, I was just kind of waiting for it, like it was going to be some big reveal, like towards the very end or something. So no, I've been holding out for him for the last 5 years, and that's paid off pretty well. The whole thing where it actually shows how just him flying over a city, just his mere presence as he flies over it, just annihilates everything. And this is all before we've even met King Ghidorah, who is our huge villain. So, as far as all of this, there are going to be cases where like screen time has to be sacrificed because there's so many. Like Mothra's screen time may disappoint some people, but her purpose is more than served in the screen time that she does have. So there is that. And Rodan might not be. I mean, this is really hard to say because there's the whole wiping out a city just by flying by thing. But even so, still, when you have the comparison of the other monsters around him, he may come off a bit underwhelming. Like his presence in general at some point, especially with just how. But that's the thing, is this dude can fly over a city and just annihilate it. With his presence and movement, and that can be considered underwhelming because of the rest of the action that's here. So, something that would be like the key big scene in a big budget movie is dwarfed in comparison to the many other scenes around it. And so, and it's even to the point about building the universe. We're not just, we obviously know where the next movie is going to come in, but also the fact that they kind of stuck with all of the backstories of all of them, more or less. Something that usually in movies like this, especially when you have this many characters coming into it, Hollywood would kind of try to scrap a little bit, to where they just kind of throw in their, easier to comprehend for people that haven't watched all the other movies and know all that other stuff. But no, they keep as much of it in here as they possibly can, which is really satisfying, especially for the people that have watched all the ones from the past, the good to the totally outrageous to the really fucking dumb, but you still kind of are into it anyway because it just all comes with the package, and they all kind of fit in the era that they were released a little bit, and you can see all the different kind of times as they go on because there's so damn many of them. And all of it almost feels like it's all like the old movies, and then everything leading up to then, and then the newer movies. Even throw in, Roland Emmerich's movie from 1998. It sort of feels like it was all leading to this movie. And the fact that we're not even done yet. There's still plenty of teases, and there's obviously the whole... It was a secret at the time. Well, I don't think any of us were even thinking about it in 2014, but when Kong Skull Island came out in 2017, we were all there was kind of a secret of, is it or is it not? And of course it is. When I reviewed Kong Skull Island, the day I saw it in the theater, I didn't stick around for the end credits scene, so I was actually talking about, is it or is it not? I think they may have mentioned Monarch, I don't remember. And it's like, oh, if I just stuck around for the end credits scene, yep. There's the universe right there. And then this one's not even shy about it. This one is actually, I don't even think this is a spoiler per se, as long as I don't say directly what it is, but they are so, like, aware that we're aware that this is going to be the Godzilla vs. Kong universe, that they've referenced Kong a few times on Skull Island a few times, to the point that even though the next movie is Godzilla vs. Kong, like, Godzilla vs. Kong is done filming. It's in post-production right now, and comes out in, like, less than a year. The, the post-credit scene to this movie has nothing to do with Kong himself. That is how aware we are of, yeah, we're just going right into that. But even being that aware, even though it's not a secret anymore, there's still the thing where they're talking about where all the different monsters are and where they found them and where they're being contained. And they say, you know, there's one here, there's one here, there's one on Skull Island. And it just goes by in the list. It's not even the last one they mentioned, it's just in the middle there. But I just found myself getting so amped up because I don't know if I got this across in my actual review of it, but I fucking love Kong Skull Island a lot. I've watched it like so many times in the past couple of years it's been out. I just watched it again a couple of weekends ago when my brother was in town because he hadn't seen it. And it was like, well, you're seeing it now? And so that's just... So I'm just totally amped for this universe completely, especially with the so many setups we get in this that are gonna feel like they're going even be. I mean, assuming all of this is also gonna be, it's all leading to stuff that will be in Godzilla vs. Kong, but they can go in so many directions now, and do so many different things. I'm really wondering. Like, I don't think I've heard about anything past Godzilla vs. Kong, so I'm wondering how much they have planned. That we may not know about yet. That or I just haven't looked enough into it. But, yeah, and it's also worth noting, I like how this all sort of has that universe feel, despite the fact that we've been changing directors this whole time. And this particular time we have Michael Dorda, who seems like because he did Trick or Treat, and then he did Krampus, and then when he got this, it's like, well, Trick or Treat and Krampus seem small by comparison, but at the same time it feels perfect. Like, the second you heard his name announced, it's like, okay, I trust that this will have a high quality to it. And you can kind of see, like, the sort of... I mean, like, even though the direction is necessarily not quite the same, there's still, like, you can kind of somewhat tell it's the guy that did Krampus, particularly in a scene set in Antarctica where they have the whole... When there's, like, you know, monsters lurking in the snow, it feels like, oh yeah, we kind of saw him do this with Krampus. But he goes to, like, such an entirely larger level, to the point that it's kind of, you can't even really explain just how much bigger it is than that. And so, and yeah, there are going to be a lot of human... There's a lot of human characters. For a movie like this, where the human characters hardly matter whatsoever, they got a huge cast for this. Like, a really renowned cast, too. As we talked about, there's Kyle Chandler and Vera Farmiga, there is Bradley Whitford, there's the people coming back from the first movie in this particular series with Ken Watanabe and Sally Hawkins, David Strathairn, and all of them. They all come back. And so many, they're even continuing to slip my mind now. It's like around every other corner in one of the human scenes, there was a very recognizable face. And yeah, I can see that those scenes obviously aren't as strong. But like I said, they are so overshadowed by what we're here for, the monsters battling. Like, if you hear complaints about it, you may fear that we get too much of the humans and too little of this, like a lot of people... The reason a lot of people didn't like the 2014 movie. But no, the movie still feels like it is constant for the entire 2 hours and 12 minutes. It really, really does. At least it did to me. And yeah, O'Shea Jackson Jr. and Thomas Middleditch are a couple people in there also. And yeah, and obviously they're gonna have dialogue, particularly the weird casting of Thomas Middleditch, where it's like, in any other movie, this character would not be comedy relief, but because he is cast in this part, you're like, oh, he's gonna be comedy relief, of course he is. And yeah, he gets an embarrassing moment when he confuses King Ghidorah's name with gonorrhea, and stuff like that. But for the most part, those lines didn't bother me, like, like, Ken Watanabe at one point pulls out the old, time to get a watch line when somebody asks him what time it is. And it's like, for some reason, coming out of Ken Watanabe's mouth, that somehow works. I guess because his character also just kind of has that way about him where, like, you don't expect a one-liner out of him. So when it does, it's like a payoff, even if it's not a very good one. Ken Watanabe can make it work. And on top of the idea of actors being able to deliver lines no matter what, I had heard about this before even going in. Apparently, it was a trailer moment. When something big happens, and either Ken Watanabe or Kyle Chandler says, "Oh God," and then Bradley Whitford says Zilla. It's like I understand if that line is like that. That's just terrible on paper, no matter what. But actually, in the context, I'm honestly not surprised at all that Bradley Whitford's character would say something like that. It is clearly like, I think the reason people are so up in arms about it is they're thinking it's supposed to be like some big thing, like some almost dramatic thing, or it's trying to be badass or something. No, in the context of this character, it is clearly tongue in cheek. It is, and then Ken Watanabe says something about a fortune cookie that's also clearly very tongue in cheek. So yeah, I don't really think it matters if the dialogue is bad because not only does it just sort of fit in line with the characters, but like I said, in the long run, does it even fucking matter what these people are saying? As long as they get us from point A to point B and give us enough information for that, that's all that really matters. And if they're gonna say cheesy one-liners, I mean, would it really be one of these movies without them? Honestly. And there was the whole, I actually kind of like the Kyle Chandler bit when they're talking about the mating rituals, and he says that the monsters are here, and they're either here for a fight, or food, and then he stops himself and says something more intimate. Because O'Shea Jackson Jr. already used our F-bomb when he saw King Ghidorah for the first time, which if you're gonna do that, that's probably the best time. So Kyle Chandler got stuck with that. Despite the fact you can use it up to 3 times. It's more effective when they just do it the one time. But even so, yeah, you can go on about the human characters all you want, but it hardly matters. It is all about the action itself. Like I said, even if it gets to be too much for some people, which I could get, and maybe sometimes it might be a bit hard to see when they, do it in certain ways, like the point in time when they're like, I think it's King Ghidorah and Rodan are attacking each other, but it's like in the midst of a dark cloud. But I don't know. It still looks a lot better. It's everything in this movie you can see a lot. You can see like physically a lot better than you can in the 2014 movie. You can say that no matter how jumbled it gets, you can see it a lot better than that. And there's almost always something worth seeing, even if, like I said, you're sick of the whole CGI thing colliding with CGI thing. But I mean, if you're that person, I don't know what the hell you're doing here. So, if you come in here and that's what you want, you're gonna get that in so many big ways. Like the big moment that everybody loves in the 2014 movie when he opens up the mouth and does the atomic breath down the throat and just dissolves it. You're gonna get, like, the way you felt when you saw that, you're gonna feel that like 30 times and probably in a row. So, there's that. Also, Kong ripping out the tongue and thus the insides of the skull crawler as well. Moments like that are just everywhere in this whole thing. And there's, like, I would say during the climax, but there's so much action, I honestly couldn't even begin to tell you where the official climax begins, because it's just kind of constantly going. So, yes. So as I've said a couple of times now, if that's what you're here for, you're going to get plenty of it, but if you think that might tire you out a little bit getting it that much, you'll probably, yes, get tired of it, but there's still enough payoffs in there that I think, and just the way some of these shots look also, whether it be, like, they're probably mostly trailer shots if I actually, so it's probably good that I never watched trailers going in. Something tells me a lot of these shots probably I would have already have seen them, but seeing them for the first time in the context of the movie, is just incredible, and it's insane to me how that's one of the big aspects of this whole series so far. Is how well everything's shot too. Kong, in particular, looks fucking amazing, like all the time. And there was some of the like the whole jump scene in the 2014 movie. All like there's so much of that, and then this one like just goes really above and beyond. So I'm just really fucking psyched to see what Godzilla versus Kong is going to do. Um, and given some developments, I'm unsure how that fight's gonna go. Uh, but yeah, that's the thing. I just gotta remain hyped to find out what it is that they do with it, and I probably will remain so until it comes out next year. So the fact that it's less than a year away, I think, helps also. That's great. So yeah, this is if you're like into this sort of thing. I don't know how much more I can recommend this to you. But it will probably get tired to some people, but that's okay too, I guess. As long as those big moments are in there, it's really, really hard to resist. So, there that is. So now we're going to go on to Rocketman. The, I, yeah, I heard some things going into this about how it was going to be, like, really unconventional in its style, and how it was going to be, like, unlike any biopic we've ever seen and stuff like that, and how it was gonna basically kind of be its own thing. It's an Elton John biopic. That's pretty much exactly what it is. The only difference is the way the music is portrayed. Because they do some fun things with that, and I can understand that in itself would give the movie this identity of it's not like the normal musical biopics that you see, where instead of the music being in the movie just being him performing it on a stage or whatever, it's like legit musical numbers that kind of fit in with his life for the most part. Some of them are kind of reaching, and some of them are like, I'm not really sure how this song goes with this, but okay, I'll go with it anyway. Uh, but for the most part, it feels like it all sticks. So initially going in, my first thought was if anybody remembers that commercial where it's my memory is really vague of it, but it's like I can't remember if it's his life in reverse or fast forward, but it's like it's Elton John in like present day, but then it's also him like getting his first piano and stuff like that. And I was like, so it's basically a feature length version of that commercial with musical numbers in it. Is basically what we have. Um, and I remember back a while back when this was in production and Tom Hardy was going to play him, and how weird that seemed. Not that it would have, been terrible or anything, because Tom Hardy can do fucking anything. So I was honestly a bit underwhelmed when Tom Hardy eventually dropped out and he was eventually replaced with Taron Egerton, because much as I have praised Taron Egerton in the past, particularly for Eddie the Eagle, who he's reuniting with Dexter Fletcher for here, so I should be, over the moon about this, but it's like he just felt... I guess he felt a bit too safe, because it's so clear already that he and Elton John have, like, that sort of connection, because there was the whole thing of him performing I'm Still Standing and Sing when he played the gorilla. And then the fact that Elton John is in Kingsman too. And it's like... It just kind of felt like it was carrying over into that, and it was like, oh, well, okay, so we kind of already got quite a bit of a vibe of what we're probably going to get before the movie's even started, at least what it feels like. So then it comes down to the movie itself. Before I go into that, I do also think it's interesting that when you talk about the musical numbers in a movie, not only is it different to a biopic that they are musical numbers, but it's also worth noting the idea that the songs are kind of like... They're like different versions of the songs. But also the fact that I remember reading going in, and I'm glad that I read this going in, because otherwise I would have been maybe a bit up in arms, but it's... Apparently, for whatever reason, I can't remember... I'm pretty sure the article said, but I don't remember what the reason was that the one thing that Elton John wanted to make sure Taron Egerton did when they made this movie was not sound like him when he sang, to just basically sing the songs and not try to imitate his voice. And so that's what we get here. And like I said, it does still make that interesting though, because it gives the songs like an entirely different sound. So it does feel like we're getting something different, but at the same time, something we're familiar with enough that we can get, hyped up for it when we hear a song start, because we can recognize what the song is, but it's maybe in like a totally different tone than we know, and obviously a different voice. So like when they spent the whole movie waiting for my favorite Elton John song, "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road," and it's like at the end it finally happened, and it's like when it starts, it's like it's a much more muted version of it, and Jamie Bell is the one that starts it. But then it gets to get bigger and bigger as it goes. And that's the way I think pretty much all the songs are. Is they're gonna sound a little different than they usually do, because it's like a whole new different version of to fit the tone of the scene that it's in, I suppose. But we're talking a lot about the musical numbers. There's also the stuff in between the musical numbers, which I didn't find near as interesting, especially given that it's going to have a lot of the musical biopic cliches in it. Like, you can do all the musical numbers you want, but when you're doing the, dramatic events in his life thing, it's stuff we've seen before. It's the drug addiction, it's the alcoholism, it's the support groups, it's all that stuff. It's the love life, all of that. And so, but the thing about that, though, is obviously you are going to have the cliches. And obviously the movie this is getting bombarded with comparisons to an honestly an annoying degree at this point. Obviously, is Bohemian Rhapsody. Worth noting, not just because it was going to do the whole, we're basically making the movie that people wanted Bohemian Rhapsody to be, where we're going to try to shake it up a little bit, we're going to go for the R rating, we're going to actually go into, like, showing gay sex on screen, which is something movies this mainstream often shy away from. It's like they're just going to go for it, which a lot of people thought Bohemian Rhapsody was really cutting down on, especially going with the PG-13. And I've expressed many thoughts on Bohemian Rhapsody at this point, and I consider myself a pretty fairly big fan of it, more or less. I know that's a really controversial opinion now. When Bohemian Rhapsody first came out, everybody was just all over it, thinking it was the greatest thing ever. And it's been a long time since I've seen such a 180 on how people in general feel about a movie, apparently. It is like, so people will not get the fuck over Bohemian Rhapsody. They're still, all the way up to before Rocketman came out, they were still bitching about it. And now they're right back to bitching about it tenfold, trying to basically use Rocketman as a, like, every single little tidbit of a review I saw of Rocketman is basically just saying, better than Bohemian Rhapsody. And it's like, and that's all people want to say. They want to use Rocketman as like a weapon against Bohemian Rhapsody. And it's like, maybe we should actually take a look at the movie, because if I'm being totally honest, once again, this may be controversial, and it may piss people off, but I do think people would be a lot harsher on Rocketman if it wasn't so popular to hate Bohemian Rhapsody right now. Honestly, that's what I think. And people would say, like, yeah, the musical numbers are cool, but good God, it's so cliche in the parts where it's not. And I hate to continue this whole thing of making a Rocketman review turn into, well, Bohemian Rhapsody did this and Rocketman did this. But honestly, the thing that I really like about Bohemian Rhapsody is people were like, oh, it's just, basically a greatest hits album with, cliches in the middle and them watering down his life. But the stuff that I really, really love in Bohemian Rhapsody that comes in between the performances of the song, and yes, I know Rami Malek is about 75 to 85% lip syncing, but even so, the parts where they're building the music are the scenes that I really, really love. They're my favorite scenes in Bohemian Rhapsody, where they're starting the songs from the ground up, and then we get to see them built, assembled, and then performed. And that's something that we don't get in this. Like movies like Hustle and Flow, that's why I love movies like that so much, is watching the music be assembled and put together is some of the most exciting stuff. And in Rocketman, the songs already exist because they just start the musical numbers. So that's something that I thought was really missing from this. And yeah, you could maybe say the building the music is part of the long list of cliches that we don't need to see again and again and again. But I don't know. I really, really love watching that kind of stuff in movies like that. So that's one thing I think this kind of those middle portions where it's not just the songs. There seemed like there was something missing. That there was. I mean, you could say there's more emotion in this than there is, especially with the whole his dad subplot. But even then, you're like you say like him trying to win the love of his father. Is also something that's in Bohemian Rhapsody. But yes, this one finds much more of an emotional high point. But even so, it just really felt like there was something missing from Rocketman to me, anyway. But there was also some stuff here that's really good. I particularly like those first scenes with Bernie Taupin, and Jamie Bell was really good in this also. In the scene where they're kind of first interacting, and it's like you can sort of instantaneously see that connection between them, and how the music is just almost immediately brought to life between the two of them. So I really like that kind of stuff. And yeah, just it is interesting, just the general approach of his songs telling the story instead of just being in there as this is what he did. He performed these songs at the end. And basically being like what Across the Universe was with Beatles songs. Even though I don't care for Across the Universe at all, that is a really good concept nonetheless. So there is that. And then there is the way these musical numbers sort of transition. Like I say, I feel like there's something missing in between the fact that the scenes in his life are happening and then suddenly the songs exist. But there are some of these transitions, like the transition when you're not necessarily sure, like towards the beginning, when they're coming. So you have the scene where he's at the piano and the song's playing and he's singing and all that, and then he just starts to float as he plays the piano, and then like the crowd follows suit, and then just the way they just seamlessly transition into those really fantastical numbers. I do really like a lot, and they're really well handled. Dexter Fletcher is a really talented director. He's only got like a few movies to his name as far as directing credits, but I'm really interested to see like what his directorial career looks like in the long run. I feel like it's going to be really, really good and really promising as it goes on. So yeah, but like I said, and we have seen lately some people trying to go into the whole let's do a musical biopic a little differently, like when Don Cheadle did Miles Ahead. Kind of got a lot of praise for being, sort of different in regards to its approach to doing the biopic thing. And it is nice to see people trying new things with that, because obviously, and even as like a fan of Bohemian Rhapsody saying this, yes, the musical biopic really needs like something to give it life. And I can totally understand this being something, like the way these musical numbers are handled, being something that people find this really refreshing when it comes to the biopic. But like I said, though, you've got the scenes in between, which have just as much screen time as the musical numbers do, if not more. And they just kind of really leave you wanting those scenes. Like, you're just kind of waiting for the next one around the corner, because it's like, yeah, we kind of know where this goes, and it's, yeah, and obviously, though, you can talk about Edgerton's performance also, where, and like I said, yes, maybe it's much more easier to dissect than, say, something like Rami Malek's performance, which I fucking loved, because it's, like, all him singing. Like I said, it's something we know he's capable of because of some of his previous roles. Even though we never saw him like actually act and sing, even though that's his actual singing voice, now we get to see him act while he's doing it, especially since the musical numbers are supposed to say something about his life in that particular moment that we're in when this number is happening. But he's also got this sort of, like I said, just the typical scenes, the drug use, the alcoholism, the support groups, all that stuff. But, yeah, so, like I said, in certain ways, it is really, really refreshing, and I can totally... I said the thing about Bohemian Rhapsody and how people would be harsher on this. But yeah, I can totally understand people seeing this as like something really refreshing based on that alone, the musical numbers, but they're still at its heart, it's just another biopic, at least to me. So, and it's fine. And he does have an interesting enough life, but I still feel like, and it was interesting the way they went in regards to making the musical numbers seem as like fantastic, one out of this world as possible. Um, or even scenes where it's mostly him singing like Pinball Wizard. They really are, in this big way that you really want them to be, and really show the emotion. Whether it's just a close up of his face while he's singing, or whether it's like a whole thing. And that's a credit to both him and the numbers themselves. But yeah, I don't know, there's just still something here that's sort of missing to me, and I think I've mostly figured out what that is. It's just, the cliches, and there's, some stuff I feel like is missing, but even so, it's fine. So there's that. Hopefully all those people that hate Bohemian Rhapsody aren't going to come and kill me in my sleep now. So there's that. Alright, so speaking of, you know, not necessarily breaking into people's houses and killing people, but similar creepy shit. Let's go into Maw. Uh, this is a movie that the very first thing that I heard about it, the very first thing I heard about it was how crazy it apparently looked. Because I wasn't sure, I don't think I knew it existed for a long time. And then when I saw that the poster I remember seeing was just Octavia Spencer's face, and the title was Maw, which could be anything. Could really be anything. And I gotta say, a horror movie was probably the last thing I would have imagined when I got a brief glimpse at that poster. And then once I got a closer look at that poster, I did see that they were, talking about the other titles from Blumhouse, and it's like, oh, that's the giveaway, of course. But even so, Octavia Spencer as a horror movie villain was not something I don't think I would have imagined anytime soon. If I did, it probably would have been in some weird, sleep-deprived state. But nevertheless, it exists now, and here it is. And it comes from, of all people, Tate Taylor, who is a very good friend of hers, so it makes sense a little bit, but at the same time, Tate Taylor is probably one of the most weirdly diverse directors working right now. Because he may have more, but the only movies of his that I can think of are, he did The Help, which obviously got Octavia Spencer her Oscar. Then he did Get On Up, Chadwick Boseman's James Brown movie. Then he did The Girl on the Train, and now this. So, as you can see, a bit odd. And there's one thing that all three of those movies have in common, and that is they're movies that might be seen as, not, well, depending on who you talk to, not that great, but with amazing performances. Obviously, most people love The Help. I really, really don't. But I can acknowledge that it's got some great performances in it. Get On Up is just, once again, a pretty cliche biopic that's kind of, shoddily edited and not very well put together. But Chadwick Boseman is beyond incredible. And then The Girl on the Train, which I really like, but a lot of people see as just a really generic thriller, with that indescribably incredible Emily Blunt performance. Probably one of her best, which is really, really, really saying something. That bar is really high. So it makes perfect sense to come into Maw and realize that Octavia Spencer may be amazing in this, but that literally tells you nothing about the movie's quality itself. None whatsoever, especially when Tate Taylor's name is on it, because Tate Taylor is not somebody I would consider an extremely talented director. Even as much as I like Girl on the Train, the direction was kind of all over the place, and it was a little too in your face when he was trying to be like disorienting about it, and it just was kind of off. And you pretty much get that sense still here, that he hasn't necessarily upgraded. But that's the thing is, he's not like, there's nothing really annoying about how this movie is, like, how it looks. Like in, say, some moments of The Girl on the Train or Get On Up. But there's not really anything that stands out at all. in regards to that, so I don't really know what to say about that, but it begins like any other horror movie would, moving into a new house. It's Juliette Lewis and her daughter. And then there's the whole thing, the whole plot being that the kids want to get... She's the new kid, so she's trying to fit in, so they're like, hey, we're trying to get adults to buy us alcohol so we can go party at the rock place or whatever that was. And so it's her turn, almost like an initiation of sorts, I guess. And she just happens to come across Octavia Spencer, who is more than willing to help them. And then as the more they hang out with her, the more obsessed with them she becomes. Only, you would think in a horror movie, or at least a thriller, there would be kind of a gradual build-up, where she might seem really cool, and then she might seem, there's something a little off about her, but she's still pretty cool, and then, like, as it goes on and on and on, it's like, oh, she's getting creepier, getting creepier, getting creepier, and then, oh, she's insane. No, it's not that gradual. It's pretty back and forth drastically. It's like, oh, she's pretty cool. Oh my gosh, she's insane. Oh yeah, she's kind of cool again. It's like, holy fucking shit, this. So, and you can tell they're trying to be gradual, but if they are, I feel like some scenes maybe got put out of order in the editing room, because it's all over the damn place. So, and a lot of it comes from almost immediately after she meets them, she starts creeping on their social media. And it's pretty quick to find them, I guess. So, and then it kind of goes into the whole, how long is it going to be before there's the really big snapping point? And there are like 3 times in the movie where you feel like that comes, but it's not. I guess it's either a fake out, or the kids are being really dumb and going back there and just saying, oh, she's alright, when she's so clearly not. Which you could maybe chalk up to them being naive kids, but I mean... Like, take, for instance, the scene when she's like, you know, you guys can hang out in my basement, whatever you do, don't go upstairs. That's my place. And it's like, oh, okay, there's weird shit going on up there, we know that immediately. That's kind of the thing, too, before I go into that, is, there's the whole thing of for a while it seems like it wants to play up that she's just really lonely. And it's like the whole thing where she's almost like the first example that comes to mind is Jim Carrey and the Cable Guy. Where it's like, oh, she's just really lonely and wants a friend, despite the fact that she's pretty off balance and probably insane. But like a loneliness and like a rejection from the people she wants to be around is what brought this on. And that would stick for a long time before it started to get weird, but we learned probably way too fast, like way before we probably should, that there's an ulterior motive here, and it's not just some lonely woman that wants company. There is a bigger plan going on here, and it's pretty early that we figure that out. Without the movie even directly outright telling us, it just immediately you can tell it's not sticking with that, and it's trying to go in another bigger direction, but I don't know just how much that payoff works. But going back to when these people probably should have gone away, actually, I'm getting ahead. There's actually a scene prior to the one I was about to mention that's probably even worse, because it's the very first night they're there, and it's just them. And so she's talking to the dude, and the dude's like, you know, hey, you're cool, right? You're gonna stay cool, right? And he, like, gets all up in her face like he's threatening her, despite the fact that they just think she's some, you know, cool lady that's almost like a mother figure to them, hence her nickname, which is the title. And so she pulls out a gun, like a real gun, and points it at him, and of course they're all scared out of their minds, and she makes the dude strip all the way down, which he does at gunpoint. And then she's like, I'm just kidding, the gun doesn't even work. And they're all like, haha, that's what... And that's this movie uses that as an out so many times. The just kidding thing. The words just kidding get so many people out of so many things in this movie. It's ridiculous. Like, there's one point that was kind of annoying when it's very clear that Octavia Spencer has drugged our main girl here. So they're all partying at Ma's house, and they're dancing around, and then she kind of starts to get faint. And we can just tell by the looks Octavia Spencer's giving that she put something in that drink and caused this. And the girl just collapses. And then wakes up in her own bed like she's Vicky Vale. And then she's like got bruises on her, and she's in her underwear, and she has no idea what the hell happened at Ma's. So she goes to her would-be boyfriend, and she's like, "What happened last night?" Like, and he's like, "Well, you got really drunk, and then you flashed some dude, and you passed out." And she's like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry, that's like cheating on you." And he's like, "I'm just kidding, that didn't really happen." And then that's it. No, okay, if you're just kidding, what did happen? Because we never really know. We never know how she got back into her own bed, what the bruises on her legs were for, and what they were from. No, it's just like, oh, you were just kidding about that one thing you said. Well, it doesn't matter what really happened anymore, because you were just kidding. Let's go on to something else now. And so that's like I said, just kidding gets us out of like 3 or 4 different scenarios that really, really need more questioning, or really a lot more concern. But, you know, whatever. Once again, maybe you can keep chalking all this up to stupid kids, but I mean, sooner or later there's a line here. Like, the whole thing where they finally decide, it's the tipping point, and you think, oh, this is when shit's gonna get real, and they're like, okay, they make a group announcement, and they're like, you know, we all gotta block Ma on our phones, because she's insane. And of course, Ma gets this on her phone also. So it's like, everybody, you know, stay away from her, she's fucking crazy, and all that. After this, they end up at her house partying like 2 more times without any reservations. I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe it's not that they're stupid kids. Maybe they just have short-term memory loss. Maybe it's a bunch of Dories just swimming around in the basement of Octavia Spencer is what the whole movie is, I guess. Oh yeah, but the scene I still didn't mention yet, after all this already, is they do finally go upstairs. Because one of the friends really has to take a piss and the bathroom's occupied. And when they come out, Ma catches them upstairs, and she takes both of them, like one right after the other, and grabs them and slams them against the wall and says, "What the fuck are you doing up here?" And she's already been heard upstairs, like when you hear when you watch the Goonies and Robert Davi's like taunting Sloth. That's what you're hearing upstairs from Octavia Spencer. This is never questioned. They're like, let's keep wandering around upstairs. Nothing will go wrong here. And it's like, at this point you think, well, maybe they're so comfortable with Ma, they don't think it's a big deal. They think if they get caught, it'll be like, oh, we're sorry. But number one, she's already pulled a gun and made one of you strip. And then there's the whole thing of when she caught you, immediately the first thing she did was slam you against the walls. It's like, that's not a very... This is clearly Ma being out of character, and by out of character I mean not the person you think she is. So totally in character for her real self, totally out of character for who you think she is. This should be raising more questions than it is, probably. But, nevertheless... There it is. And when I talked about Godzilla King of the Monsters just now, I said, in some movies it just really doesn't matter if the characters make bad decisions or not, depending on if the movie does its job well. But the problem is that it is this movie's job to be like a thriller and to build that tension and all that. But when you have... That's the problem, is the characters play such a part in whether that's going to be effective or not. Because it's like, where is the suspense now? Like, what I was saying was, it's like, oh, I was saying shit's about to really hit the fan now, and that's what was getting me amped up when they said, hey, we're blocking Ma forever because she's fucked up, and Ma saw this herself. So, where am I supposed to go with how amped up I am about how much the shit's gonna hit the fan, when they just go right the fuck back to her house anyway? Like, where does that go? And it fucks up the whole product. So, yeah, in this particular case, it does matter what the characters are doing, and how fucking stupid they are inexplicably. So yeah, and like I said, the build up is probably a little too quick. Because for the first time we kind of get glimpses of what Ma really is, it's like in her second scene, where she goes to work at this veterinary hospital where her boss is a random Allison Janney, and Allison Janney is like, really belittling to her. And like the very first thing Allison Janney says, Octavia Spencer shoots her a look that says, "You're probably not going to survive the movie, Allison Janney." My fellow Oscar winner that said yes to this script. And so it just right then, just right off the bat, there's like the build-up is almost gone already. And so, and yeah, they will throw in dialogue that probably isn't the best. Like we've got the main dude's dad is Luke Evans, who is now banging Missy Pyle, and Missy Pyle plays a character named Mercedes, who Juliette Lewis knows. So Juliette Lewis is like, so how do you feel about Mercedes? And the kid's response is, well, let's just say I'm more of a Porsche guy. That's okay. So it's obviously a terrible line, but maybe not so out of place in a movie like this. Maybe this is a movie where we can embrace shitty dialogue because of the kind of movie that it is. Where it's like, if you can't embrace the characters being fucking morons because it fucks up the rest of the story and makes it, it doesn't matter where everything goes now because the movie's just going to do whatever the hell it wants. But I mean, if you want to do shitty dialogue on something like this, you can probably get away with that. If it's memorable enough. And yeah, I would say I'm more of a Porsche guy is probably memorably bad enough that it might be okay. So at least it's got that going for it. But that's the thing though, is even when it gets to like the climax, there's not much to the climax either in regards to how it's built up, because once again, basically being totally out of character with themselves. This is one of those movies where just out of total convenience for the things that happen needing to happen, all the kids decide to go ahead and converge at the same place at the same time, when they probably really shouldn't be long past this point. But then you're probably thinking, like, I keep hearing about how crazy it is. Like, when does it get really crazy? How does it get really, really crazy with all this? Yeah, I'd say it's about the last 20 minutes or so is when all the really crazy shit starts happening. It may have been a little too built up. Or maybe I've just seen too much crazy shit, because it did seem, with all that build up, the crazy shit, while crazy, did feel a bit maybe underwhelming in how far it went. There actually, interestingly enough, of all the crazy, like, violent things that happen, and the, just the weird shit in general that happens, honestly, to me, the weirdest thing that happened in the climax was this moment that takes place that's related to race. That was, like, really messed up. And if that's the weirdest thing with all the other shit that this character does, you probably could have gone many steps farther than you did, despite the reputation you're getting very quickly of how crazy your last 20 minutes is. And I think another reason that feels underwhelming, regardless of what happens, is once again, just the stakes don't feel like they're there, because the first violent scene that happens because there is a scene towards relatively close to the beginning that sets it up. And the way that is set up, you don't quite expect this first violent scene to happen the way it does at the time that like as suddenly as it does. And it's like, oh shit, okay, officially now. Not the whole blocking thing or anything like that. From this point on, everything's gonna go fucking south for everybody now. Like, this is the starting point. There was even a person, like, 2 rows ahead of me that, like, audibly reacted to this. And yeah, then it just kind of all happens in quick succession. With not a lot of build-up. Which I guess you could say the whole movie's the build-up, but at the same time, it's like they just kind of wanted to rush and do all the crazy shit at the same time, instead of spreading it out a little bit and building some tension in between to make it even more fucked up. Not too dissimilar to what Brightburn did. This is a better movie than Brightburn. I don't even want to bring that into the equation, but still. So the problem with that, though, is after that first violent scene happens, that character's name that it happens to is mentioned one more time. I don't know if the body was disposed of, or if all the characters just decided to not care that this person was suddenly not in the movie anymore. I don't know. It's never mentioned again, except that the character's name is dropped one more time, but even barely in a context. The way the character's name is dropped, you think, oh, this is going to lead to something about a reveal about, you know, somebody finding out about that character. No. And the second time, too. Nobody ever asked about that character again, either. And these are public places, by the way. But nope. Just nothing. We gotta get to the climax as fast as possible. And then once the climax is actually here, we've gotta finish it as fast as possible. And so there's that. It's also another one of those movies that seems like it has like a lot of twists and turns up its sleeve. But it's one of those cases where once the twists happen, you're like, well, yeah, I did kind of figure that. So you wait for the next big twist. And then there's like one more, and you're like, oh, yeah, I kind of figured that, too. And then the climax happens and the movie ends, and you're like, oh, I thought there was going to be a whole sort of web of things going on here. But nope, just, hey, I bet you didn't know this thing. And it's like, yeah, I kind of figured. And it's like, I bet you didn't know this thing, though. And it's like, you kind of hinted at that the whole movie, so congratulations, I guess. you tried, I guess. And then, yeah, and then it just sort of ends very abruptly. And there it is. So it's like, I guess it did end in the right place. Because I remember it lingering on the last shot, and I was like, well, I guess it's time for the epilogue, but what would even be the epilogue? And then just as I thought that, credits. It's like, oh, okay, yep, there couldn't be an epilogue. There's no continuation. Okay, whatever. I don't know. But yeah, there's something about what Octavia Spencer can do with this role that does almost, I struggle to say elevates the whole thing. But I mean, it does keep you, like, I don't think this movie would be able to hold a viewer's attention the way that it does if it wasn't for what Octavia Spencer's doing. And the fact that she, admittedly, is pretty amazing in the part, especially since it's so out of fucking nowhere from her. But I mean, if it was any other, you know, actress, if it was an actress we kind of expected more in a role like this, it would probably just be Greta again. The Isabelle Huppert, Chloe Moretz movie from like a couple months ago. It would probably just be that again, pretty much. So, yeah. But I mean, it's not a, despite all those things and all those stupid things in it, it's not a movie that I hate. And like I said, it does keep your attention. You do kind of wonder, like, where exactly is it going, even though it's a place you can pretty much figure out pretty early. The fact that it does keep you wondering anyway. Like, I didn't give up on it thinking that was its whole deck of cards. I was waiting for something else, and it's like, there had to have been something to it that I was able to maintain that attention and not just say, I know where this is going, so fuck the rest of it. But, maybe that's just being too easy on it, but, yeah. So, there it is. I mean, if you're into, like, guilty pleasure movies, and it's like the way people build it up, like it's this crazy thing you have to see to believe or whatever, if it's built up enough, you might be underwhelmed, but there's probably something in there. So, like I said, maybe I've just seen too much crazy shit or something, or I had too much expectations for what is considered really, really crazy shit now, but yeah, it's so yeah, that's what that is. So, I think that's it for this week, with next week being X-Men, maybe? I think. I can't remember if there's anything between that or not, but we'll figure it out when it comes along. I'm also seeing that they're doing the anniversary screening. Well, not anniversary, because that would have been last year, but those screenings of Saving Private Ryan that they're doing in theaters on Sunday. I'll probably be going to one of those, and I might do it as like a versus thing or something, probably Thin Red Line or something. And then we'll go from there. Finally preparing that whole catching up on all the 2019 movies that I missed. It'll be in like 2 separate of those cluster videos and all that. And a versus, another franchise video, all that stuff. So, yeah, hopefully all of that will be in quick succession in the next few days or so. So, and over this weekend and all that. So, so we'll see if that happens. So until all that, that's it.